Hello and good morning from the brutal capitalist dictatorship of Kuala Lumpur. I hope you're having an amazing day, because if you're having an amazing day, I'm having an amazing day. If I'm having an amazing day, you should also be having an amazing day. But to be frank with you, I'm not having an amazing day because my car is at the car mechanic and I have to maintain a stiff upper lip while I navigate through traffic without the benefit of a car. Yes, crossing these dangerous KL roads without a car is a real health and safety hazard. Do you see? There is absolutely no overhead walkway. If you want to cross, you just have to run across the road, and risk life and limb in order to get from one place to the next if you don't have a car. Now, granted, you could hire a Grab, but that costs money. And I think that anyone who does not have the mobility of wheels or who is deprived of his mobility will soon realize just how inconvenient it is to be poor in a capitalist society. Expat YouTubers often gush about how modern, high-tech and classy a city Kuala Lumpur is. And on their channels you will see a highly sanitized and curated image of the capitalist dystopia we live in being shown to the world. But what many people don't realize is that the Kuala Lumpur that you see in the videos of people like Lilith in KL or Malaypan is a highly sanitized image of Kuala Lumpur. It is basically the life of the top 5%. Because if you are an expat from a global north country, whether that be America, the UK, Australia, or Japan, or South Korea, you probably live in a posh neighborhood in KL, such as Bangsa, or Hatamas, or Monkiara. But you do not have to put up with the crumbling infrastructure, lack of safe pedestrian crossing, and general lack of safety in these less developed and less affluent proletarian places have to, such as Selayang, where I am, which is basically an industrial center in Kuala Lumpur. It's basically the equivalent of Coketown in Charles Dickens's novel Hard Times. While many expats in Malaysia are living the dream and enjoying a standard of living that they could not envision in their global north countries, the majority of people in KL are living a nightmare. While many expats are living the high life in Kuala Lumpur, many people are living in purgatory in this brutal dystopian and sordid capitalist dystopia. But I have to make it clear that I do not begrudge these expat content creators. After all, they do want to cultivate an audience, and you cultivate an audience by saying nice things about the country. And furthermore, it is perfectly normal for people to want to improve their material conditions. So if I were born in a global north country and I found that my material conditions were not improving, and I could improve my material conditions by moving to Southeast Asia and having the privilege of my expat currency and white skin, I too might make the move to this country. But let's not pretend that expats live in the same reality as the majority of people in Kuala Lumpur. Now, That doesn't mean that I'm begrudging you as an expat, like I mentioned. But you see Kuala Lumpur, if you are an expat and you're a happy expat, you see Kuala Lumpur through a totally different lens from how the majority of people who have to live and work in KL see Kuala Lumpur. Because places like Bangsa, Mont Kiara, Bukit Bintang, these are simply pockets in Kuala Lumpur, posh pockets that do not reflect the general reality of Kuala Lumpur. In fact, Kuala Lumpur itself is a pocket of Southeast Asia, in the same way that Shanghai is a pocket in China. It does not reflect the majority of China, just like Kuala Lumpur does not reflect the majority of Malaysia. When I describe Kuala Lumpur as a soulless capitalist dictatorship, many people take offense. You know, they say that, Kuala Lumpur is not soulless, you just haven't been to the right places. Well, the fact of the matter is that with the exception of a few cultural landmarks like Yap Aloy's temple or the watering holes in Bangsa, where the upper echelons of our society congregate, or the places in KL like Mont Kiara, which actually give you walkable pathways and safe pedestrian crossings, most of KL is quite frankly a shithole. And I don't say this to insult people in KL. I'm a KLite myself. What I am saying is that the majority of us are living in squalid conditions, and we have to operate in squalid conditions. And so when an expat or a foreigner comes and makes a video about our city and portrays it as this utopian paradise, it is giving a highly misleading image to the world. In the same way, those Wu Maos go to China and they portray it as this utopian paradise without any poverty or without any struggle, where everyone enjoys a civilized standard of living. It's the same thing. It gives a misleading image to the world. But I suppose the obvious question is this: where the hell are our tax dollars going? It's been 2 years. 2 years since the Pakatan Harapan government has been in office. Where the hell are our pedestrian walkways? Where the hell are our proper, safe pedestrian crossings? Where the hell are our trees? You know, it gets very, very bloody hot in the afternoon, and not all of us have the luxury of driving an air-conditioned motor vehicle, right? Some of us have to ride motorbikes, some of us have to walk. So it gets really, really hot in the afternoon. Well, I'll tell you where our tax dollars are going. Our tax dollars are going to the golfing trips and fancy dinners of the fat cats in the bourgeois party that we elected, because we didn't have a socialist running. Yes, that is where our tax dollars are going. Not to improve the welfare of the rakyat, not to give us a clean and safe and livable environment, but rather to enrich the lives of the few rather than the many. Because once you've seen the allowance of a minister in government, and you juxtapose that with the squalid conditions in most of KL, it's very difficult not to become angry and class conscious and disillusioned with bourgeois parties. Now make no mistake, Malaysia is still much more socialistic than America, at least when healthcare is concerned. But even then, healthcare is gradually being privatized, and neoliberal politics are gradually creeping into our healthcare system. And soon it's going to creep into our education system as well, yeah? The lives of Malaysians have not improved in these last 2 years since Pakatan Harapan took the reins. I was under no illusions that a bourgeois party would solve the problems in this country. But it was the only party that I could vote for the alternative was a far right-wing fascist party, right? I'll be frank with you. I voted for Pakatan Harapan because it was, to me, the least bad party on the list. But the fact of the matter is that we had no socialists contending. That's why I say liberal Western democracy is basically a case of two wolves deciding who gets to eat dinner, right? But this is not a poor country. Malaya has never been a poor country because we are rich. We are rich in natural resources such as palm oil, timber, rubber, and petroleum. Yes, that's a very, very, very lucrative export of ours, yeah? The British would not have come here if this was a shithole. They would not. You don't come to poor countries in order to make money. But their post-colonial surrogates turned it into a crap hole because, well, what has happened is simply that the country is not poor, but the wealth is not correctly distributed. Yes, like I said, Malaya is a rich land full of natural resources, but the problem is the resources are not owned by us, the people, but the private companies and the capitalist fat cats in power. It is they who control the means of production. That is fundamentally why when you are in a capitalist model, you see such a wide disparity, such a stark contrast between a neighborhood like this and a neighborhood like Montiara. Because the capitalists who live in these neighborhoods like Montiara or Kenny Hills or Hatamas do not want to live in these conditions. So naturally, those places are far more civilized in their infrastructure than what we have over here. And what if you are a minister who is late for work? You know, unlike us plebeians who have to wake up early to avoid the dreadful KL jam, you can simply hire a police escort to escort you to your workplace. And the fact of the matter is that that is another class distinction that the ministers or the upper echelons have from us, that they don't have to wake up early to go to work. Well, we do if we don't want to be stuck in the atrocious KL jam. Yeah? So it should be made abundantly clear to you where our taxpayers' dollars are going. And it's definitely not going to the upkeep and the development of our city. It's not going to the upkeep and development of most of KL, save for the poshest neighborhoods, you know. And the fact is that I don't know how much longer the people can take this eventually before there's some seismic change that happens. But I wouldn't be surprised if it happens very soon. Well, as you can see, there's no pedestrian walkway on this area even. I'm literally walking on the road. Yeah, in any other country, this would be construed as jaywalking. But I have no choice because there's no pedestrian walkway in this area. So I hope this shatters the myth of the efficiency of capitalist development, because fundamentally, capitalist development is totally inefficient because it prioritizes profit, or, you know, profit over the needs of the masses. When you have the profit motive in place, you know, it doesn't matter how dilapidated the rest of the city or the rest of the country is, as long as the areas of the few fat cats in power are developed, right? Because the profit motive, that is what the profit motive gives you. But more importantly, when we socialists demand better public infrastructure, when we demand a 500 ringgit a month pension for old people without any social security, this is not an unreasonable demand. This is not even a concession that the capitalist class is making. This is basically taking back a little bit of our wealth, because the people of this country pay taxes, do they not? Yes, the people of this country contribute to building the economy. to making the lives of the elites better, don't they? So when we say that we want, like, for example, a 500 ringgit a month a pension, the PSM, the Party Socialist Malaysia, has proposed a 500 ringgit a month pension for old people, elderly citizens without social security. Or when I say, you know, the least you could do would be to give us walkable pathways, more trees, and a slightly more civilized standard of living for the majority of us in KL. This is not asking for something. This is telling you, the fat cats in power, that you are misappropriating our wealth. You are using our money in taxes, the money that we paid, and the money that the wealth that we produced for you, in order to enrich yourselves at our expense, yeah? Because if you can create civilized conditions in posher neighborhoods, of course you can create civilized conditions throughout the entire country. And when we ask, when we demand that the government raise the minimum wage to 2,000 ringgit a month at minimum, this is not asking for a handout either, but rather this is saying that you ought to give back the wealth that you have stolen from the people. You are living at the expense of the majority of the people, right? Labour has produced palaces in Kenny Hills, in Monkiara, in Sri Hatamas, but it has produced hovels throughout the majority of Kuala Lumpur. At one end of the pole is wealth, happiness, and contentment, and at the other end of the pole is misery, suffering, and degradation. That is the reality of the two sides of Kuala Lumpur today. So a person who's living in impoverished conditions is not suffering from a character flaw, nor is this person suffering from a character defect, because poverty is not a character defect. No, poverty is a case of theft, of stolen wealth. Because the reason hovels like this exist is because there is one group of people known as the bourgeoisie, the capitalist class, who live in pomp and luxury at the expense of the majority. And the reason they can enjoy such pomp and luxury is because of one simple word: exploitation. Yes, that is the reason. Billionaires do not work for their money. They exploit. They hire wage labor, they underpay and overwork, and they only pay you as much as required in order to reproduce your existence. That is the reality of being a wage laborer in any capitalist society. But the reality of being a citizen in any capitalist society, even a citizen who's doing fairly well for himself, like myself, is a general feeling of frustration, a feeling of nihilism, that things cannot possibly get better under the current mode of production, and a feeling that our money is going somewhere, but it's generally not going to the upkeep and well-being of the people, quite palpably. So yeah, forgive me if I say that socialism, or the ownership of the means of production by the people who produce value, the working class of this country, is the only way forward to ensure a civilized standard of living for the masses. Because the capitalists, or the bourgeoisie, have had 2 years to prove themselves. They've had 2 years to uplift the material conditions of the masses, and look where this has got us. So I'd like to end this video by saying that while KL is indeed my home, it is not a place that I am proud to call home. I'm proud to call Malaysia home because there's many positive things to say about the Malaysian masses, the Malaysian working class. But in reality, there is not a lot of positive things to say about Kuala Lumpur in its current state. Because as I've said, while a few privileged people in KL are living the dream, the vast majority of us are living in a nightmare. And until things change, until we enter socialism, until we get socialism in KL or in Malaysia, you know, things are only going to get worse. They're going to get better for the few, but worse for the majority. So I don't want to see Malaysia revert to fascism, because that's what could happen, you see. When people are frustrated with their material conditions, like in Nazi Germany or in Mussolini's Italy, that is when you have fascist demagogues coming to a group, a majority of people without class consciousness, and swaying them over towards reactionary tendencies. I don't want to see that. So I really think that we should be going around trying to instill class consciousness in the people, making a conscious effort to do so, and be willing to educate the people and talk to the people. We must show the people of Malaysia, even though they may not be aware of it now, we must show them the shape of this society so they can tear it down with their bare hands and form a new one, a socialist world. Thank you very much, and have a wonderful day.